Robert Tester. He appeared to be a family guy. He had a little girl. He was close with his parents.
How did the murder unfold?
A masked man was in the room with them, and he was viciously attacking her dad.
Robert's completely defenseless. He's stabbed multiple times, and he's fighting for his life.
The little girl came face to face with her father's attacker, and he said, "I'm going to kill your daddy."
And was there evidence pointing to one person who did this?
Robert has a bunch of people that could all be possible suspects. He's got a roommate he's had a disagreement with. He has an ex-wife. He's got this possible drug business and all kinds of drug contacts.
The true terror of what this little girl went through is unimaginable.
Robert Tester is laying on the floor and he's got this huge gash in his head where he's been struck by this splitting maul.
Robert Tester was stabbed some 66 times. There was blood everywhere.
The caller has a taped confession. He was actually happy that he had murdered Robert Tester.
Hi, I'm Nancy O'Dell. Today's Crime Exposé takes us to Spokane, Washington. A father was viciously attacked and murdered in his own home, and his young daughter saw it all. But a chance confession cracked the case and caught the killer. Spangle, Washington, a rural town just outside of Spokane. It's an idyllic community thought to be safe from the dangers of the big city.
Spangle is a sweet community. It's the perfect place to raise a family, the perfect spot to kind of avoid the hustle and bustle. It's beautiful farmland, the kind of spot where truly a happily ever after could begin.
35-year-old Robert Tester was one of those drawn to Spangle. The Tester name was well known and respected.
Robert Tester was the nephew of a U.S. Senator out of Montana named John Tester. He appeared to be a family guy. He had a little girl. He was close with his parents, and he seemed to be living a good life.
He had some connections to the marijuana industry over here in Washington. He had a couple of acres, a few dogs, a pretty nice house by all accounts. Robert Tester had been recently divorced, and he's sharing some custody with his ex-wife of their daughter.
One autumn evening, the father and his 8-year-old daughter settled in for the night. They believed they were safe in their own home.
Robert Tester and his young daughter had fallen asleep. She had crawled into bed with him, and she woke up to agonizing screams. A masked man wearing dark clothing was in the room with them, and he was armed, and he was viciously attacking her dad. The little girl came face to face with her father's attacker, and he said something to the effect of, "I'm going to kill your daddy."
Robert is left there to fight with this individual, and this guy has at least 2 swords that he is stabbing Robert with. Robert's completely defenseless. He's stabbed multiple times, and he's fighting for his life, trying to get away. He's running away from this individual throughout the house, and blood's going everywhere.
The 8-year-old girl lay frozen with fear, unable to understand what was happening.
Robert's daughter is hiding down in the basement, but we know that Robert came to the bottom of the stairs, and she must have been in horror as this man is attacking her father, and then Robert runs back up the stairs, and she is able to see all of this from her bedroom.
Finally, the horrific attack ended, but the sounds of screams were replaced with an eerie silence.
Robert Tester is laying on the floor in the dinette area. The splitting maul is cast aside next to him, and the attacker decides to exit the house. He goes downstairs, and he sees the young lady hiding in her bedroom, and he says something similar to her that, "Your dad and I had an agreement, and he must die." And the attacker leaves.
The true terror of what this little girl went through is unimaginable. It truly is as bad as it gets. She was able to fall back to sleep at some point, but as soon as she woke up that next morning, she called her grandma and was saying something was terribly, terribly wrong, and she needed help.
The young girl's grandmother calls 911, alerts them that there's been an attack at this resident, and Spokane County Sheriff's Office sends a deputy out to the scene to check on the little girl and what has happened.
When they walked into the Tester home, what they saw was absolute chaos. There was blood everywhere, and in the midst of all of it was a terrified little girl.
So they take Robert's daughter out to a patrol car to try to offer her some comfort.
What did police learn about the victim in the home?
It was quickly revealed that the victim of this grisly homicide was the nephew of a very well-known politician in Montana, and that really, added some pressure to get justice for this heinous crime. There didn't appear to be any signs of a break-in or a burglary. Inside the home, there was a definite feeling of he must have known his attacker or willingly let him into his home. This was a vicious, heinous attack with multiple weapons involved, one of which, a maul that's typically used to split firewood, was covered in blood.
There's a significant amount of marijuana and a few other drugs that are found in the residence.
While crime technicians process the grisly scene, shockwaves of Robert Tester's murder reached the nation's capital.
Shortly after this incident takes place, Capitol Police from Washington, D.C. are reaching out to my supervisor, wanting to know what's going on. And they want to know, is this politically connected? Does John Tester have some enemies that's now striking out at his family? Or what is the deal here?
Detectives took the traumatized girl to the sheriff's office for an interview, trying to find out what happened. She was in shock and grieving her father's death.
She's able to give them a limited amount of information about how this individual broke into the house, woke him up, and begins this attack on her dad. And Robert's daughter has a brief conversation with this individual as he's on the way out of the house, and she tells us that he disguises his voice. He sounds like a pirate, and he's got his identity disguised with this costume as he heads out, and she's really not able to give us a whole lot to go on.
News of Robert Tester's horrific murder quickly spread. The city was stunned by the brazenness of the crime.
What we find is that Robert has a bunch of people in his past that could all be possible suspects. He's got a roommate he's had a disagreement with. He has an ex-wife that they battle over custody and money. He's got this possible drug business and all kinds of drug contacts. And then a semi-girlfriend that he apparently doesn't always get along with. So we have a very wide spectrum of people to choose from as possible suspects.
And all of those people had alibis, or they were able to quickly discount them from having anything to do with this murder.
Police hoped an autopsy on Robert Tester's body might reveal clues as to who the killer was. It was a death of unimaginable horror.
Robert Tester was stabbed some 66 times. He was also beaten.
And he's got this huge gash in his head where he's been struck by this splitting maul, which appears to be the final blow.
The investigation into the murder stalled, and detectives had little to go on. They suspected that Tester's drug connection was tied to the killer.
We knew that there was a killer out there. Who could it be? This person could be anywhere.
Spokane County detectives investigating the murder of Robert Tester had looked at multiple suspects and came up empty. But Tester's black market side business suggested that he may have had enemies.
The marijuana factor was an avenue that law enforcement really had to look into.
On one of the tables, there are boxes of marijuana that is apparently getting ready to be sold. There's a larger amount of drugs. in the adjoining barns to the immediate residence. This has got to have some kind of a drug nexus, and the fact that someone is either owed money or came here to rip Robert off.
Detectives then learned that 1 week before the murder, the victim posted a cryptic comment on social media. Tester's post seemed to predict a violent confrontation with an enemy.
It kind of implies that he's going to either commit a homicide or a suicide of his own, and we're trying to decide what implications does this post have in his death.
It was a frustrating time for investigators, for loved ones, and for the community. We knew that there was a killer out there. Who could it be? This person could be anywhere, and that was troubling.
Days turned into weeks, which turned into months, and the case showed no signs of ever being solved. But then, 3 months after Robert Tester was slaughtered in his own home, the sheriff's department got a voicemail.
This individual from Texas has called to tell me that he knows who the killer of Robert Tester is. So the caller tells me his friend's name is John Radovich. He lives in the Spokane area, and they had been lifelong friends, and now John has called him to tell him that he has fulfilled a childhood fantasy of being like an Avenger and taking revenge out on Robert Tester for a supposed assault on a young lady.
This development was explosive. This was a name that was on nobody's radar, and the details of why he says he did it just took this story to a whole nother level.
The caller has a taped confession because the killer has called him, and it just so happens that his business line is recorded all the time. He makes this confession on the phone. He was actually happy that he had murdered Robert Tester. He didn't have any remorse, and he was almost bragging to his friend about how he had done this and why he had done it.
In a rambling manifesto, John Radovich saw himself as an avenging angel on a mission to punish an offender. To the killer, this was a graphic novel brought to life.
In the phone call, John Radovich, he admitted he committed this murder, but he said he only did it to protect a 17-year-old girl who Tester had apparently dated. And Radovich claimed he was abusive to this girl, and he wanted justice for her. He said that police were not helpful in getting justice for that girl, so he had to take justice into his own hands.
So once I have the name John Radovich, the U.S. Marshals locate him in the Spokane Valley and to take him into custody. He's in custody, he's sitting in an interview room, and he immediately tells me he wants an attorney. So our interview with John Radovich is effectively over.
While Radovich cooled his heels in jail, detectives learned more about his motive and what sparked the violence.
The young lady goes by the street name of Skittles. She's actually underage of 18. She is a street kid that is part-time living with Robert Tester. Radovich had told people Tester had given her a concussion. She ended up in the hospital.
Radovich seemed to be unapologetic about this heinous murder and saying he would have done just about anything to get justice and to protect this 17-year-old girl.
So as we look into the background of Radovich and who he is involved in a world that's just a little bit different. He's got this fantasy of being an Avenger. He's currently involved in cosplay. He has multiple katana swords. He is kind of an individual that I believe is somewhere between artsy and violent.
Police were now convinced that they had the man who assassinated Robert Tester in front of his daughter. If the killer had a defense, the world would have to wait until his trial to hear it.
After hearing the taped confession, we go to work and we're able to gather enough evidence to establish that this is definitely our guy. Cell phone records back it up, DNA backs it up, and we now have enough evidence that we can arrest and try this guy for the death of Robert Tester.
Word of Radovich's arrest was absolutely shocking. We were not expecting a bombshell like this. Without his confession, it's very likely John Radovich never would have been on the radar of these detectives. he could have gotten away with this.
Police say John Radovich, the self-appointed avenging angel, would have to answer for his sins.
Radovich tries to say that he just went to Tester's house to talk to him, and Tester attacked him.
John Radovich went on trial for the murder of Robert Tester. His crime had shocked the city of Spokane and those in the small community of Spangle. But that paled when the accused presented his defense.
Radovich tries to say that he just went to Tester's house to talk to him, and Tester attacked him. So now he's trying to use a claim of self-defense when this whole attack has happened in Tester's home, in front of his daughter.
This seems so out of the realm of believability to blame the victim for a slaughter.
John Radovich said he never meant to kill Tester. He alleged that he went to the front door and that Tester opened the door holding that maul, and that immediately a fight ensued.
He doesn't present just like any self-defense individual that immediately calls the police and renders help and says, hey, I didn't mean to do this. He basically goes into hiding. He gets rid of all of the evidence that he can.
People finally got to see John Radovich in court without a mask and costume to hide behind. He didn't present himself as a victim of circumstances. In fact, his demeanor came across as arrogant.
This individual is sociopathic of some type because of the type of interactions that he's able to have. He feels like he's completely justified in doing this and doesn't see anything wrong with taking retaliatory actions against Robert Tester.
Emotions were high throughout the trial, but none more than when Robert Tester's daughter took the stand.
It was the little girl that really just grabbed the hearts of our community. We all just grieved for what she must have gone through. The trauma of that day is just innocence lost. Radovich was sentenced to life without parole. As it stands, he will never get out. And the trauma of those left behind, they almost have a life sentence too, having to deal with this every day and the trauma that follows.
Robert Tester's daughter was robbed of a father because of one man's vengeful fantasies. She has stayed out of the spotlight and has lived her life the best she can. And by all accounts, she has managed to thrive and honor her father, while John Radovich sits in a prison cell alone. And now it's time for today's Safety Spotlight. In the case of Robert Tester, a tip from someone to whom the perpetrator confessed played a crucial role in solving the case and delivering justice. Remarkably, studies indicate that over 37% of perpetrators confess their crimes to individuals outside of law enforcement, such as friends or acquaintances. If you have information regarding a crime, you can report it to your local police department. And if you fear retaliation, most local law enforcement agencies allow you to submit information anonymously online. You can also report tips by phone at 1-800-222-TIPS or crimestoppersusa.org. I'm Nancy O'Dell. For everyone here at Crime Exposé, please join us next time and stay safe.